Your startup's culture is one of the most undervalued growth levers of your budding organization, and it is something that most VCs or your advisors are not going to coach you through how to build. It comes from the founder. So let me be clear, your culture is not your product, it is not your tech or your position in the market. It is the most undervalued advantage in today's competitive landscape. Forget ping pong tables, company offsites, and vision statements. Culture is the difference between becoming the next SaaS unicorn or building a team that rage quits on Slack just because there was a slight change to the product roadmap. For the next 20 minutes or so, let's talk about startup culture and why it actually matters to the success of your organization. My name is Morgan Von Drew, and I've spent the last 10 years helping early stage startups from 3 scrappy teammates in a refurbished photography studio, scale an aviation company, all the way to working with enterprise giants like Atlassian and Experian, where the marketing campaigns I have led have been responsible for upwards of $1.3 billion in marketing-led revenue. Today, I'm not going to be talking about CAC or LTV or how to scale your funnel. I'm going to be giving you the operating system that lies underneath it all: culture. This is your hidden weapon in the talent wars, innovation sprints, and against competitive chaos. If you ignore it, you lose. It's pretty simple. If you build it intentionally, then you can't be stopped. Your company will be an immovable force. Most startups obsess over funding rounds or product market fit or the technical differentiation of the back end of their product that almost nobody's ever going to see anyway. But most don't focus on building 3 core pillars: alignment, cohesion, and purpose across their entire organization. Imagine a startup where everyone is actually rowing in the same direction, not just sprinting towards their own personalized KPIs in chaos. This isn't a field day for your professionals. Now, everybody might be a top of the line A player, but if people aren't on the same page and they're all sprinting in different directions, then the company isn't going to move. That is the difference between hiring a team to fill headcount and hiring a team to fill culture. When everyone can move in one concerted effort, that is culture. When you can remove the founder from the equation and isolate any given team member and say, what is the best decision and point of action at this exact moment for the company as a whole, and you can trust them to make that decision without executive oversight, that's when you get culture right. You don't get it right by hosting company happy hours. You do not unlock it by hosting a Notion page with a whole bunch of empty values that you aren't going to adhere to anyway. Like, one of my favorites is calling your company a family, when you know damn well as a founder, when the market shifts, most of your family is going to be liable to getting laid off. If the only thing that your team cares about is chasing salary and stock options, then you don't have a positive culture. They're all going to ship the moment somebody else offers more. And let's face it, in the era of $1 million yearly contracts or $10 million contracts for AI researchers, somebody is going to offer your top talent more. It is your responsibility to give them the hope of building a legacy, building towards their mission, or helping them achieve mastery in their craft that they won't be able to get elsewhere. That in and of itself is an unshakable motivation. We get it. Good talent is expensive and you want the best, but great talent is even rarer than ever. And today's top performers aren't just looking for competitive comp packages. They can get that anywhere. They're looking for craft. They're looking for mission and belonging with a group of cohorts that understand their intrinsic values and are excited as they are to bring an innovative product to market. Your startup is like a playground for the best in the industry. Yes, people need to be ruthlessly efficient. Yes, they can't be hemorrhaging your investors' money, but a great startup culture is going to move quickly, encourage experimentation, and not fire somebody if they fuck up from a small, reasonable snafu. You don't want the writer who just needs a job as soon as possible. You want the writer who can't not write. You want the videographer who edits wedding clips on their weekends for fun. You want somebody who in their downtime is still going to be performing the primary function that you hired them for because they're just that passionate about it. I was listening to a podcast from Alex Hormozi and Harley, one of the founders of Shopify, about how their internal culture works. And this really exemplified the whole conversation that we're having here. You don't just hire high performers, you enable them. Your culture needs to be a recruitment brand, and you don't want to take somebody who is absolutely phenomenal at doing something like running paid ads and then put them in a leadership position where they're spending the next several months coaching people on how to do their job or having to write like quarterly reviews for their employees when they would much rather be designing ad sets, making graphics, and writing copy. Your job isn't to motivate. People should come into the door motivated already to get shit done. Your job is to attract people who are already on fire and then hand them a container with fuel and say, have fun. The difference here is that fun for these people means making you money by doing what they excel at. The math here, as an overly simple equation, is strong culture equals high trust equals faster decision and equals better outcomes. All of these start to feed in a virtuous circle around one another. It's not really difficult algebra. The psychology of safety means that you're going to have a secure R&D engine who feels like they're not going to get fired if they happen to be wrong one time. They have the freedom to experiment. Yes, you want a well-oiled machine. Yes, you want to make sure that people are getting an 80% hit rate of success on the campaigns that they're running, but that extra 20% is so important to give your employees a little bit of leeway. Like, hey, yeah, you tried this new campaign, it didn't work. What did you learn from it? The ability to learn from your mistakes and learn from your failures is more important than having a 100% success rate. And a lot of founders need to understand that. When you allow your team to experiment, that's when you get breakthroughs that are going to differentiate your company in the market. That's when you're going to build something brand new that nobody else ever expected. Run the playbook that makes sense that other companies are running 80% of the time. But the other 20% of the time, give your employees the freedom to experiment without fear of losing their roles. This type of agility is why your team can hear something on a Tuesday afternoon meeting and just nod their heads and say, yep, the entire roadmap changed. This is the direction the company needs to go in. We understand, coach. Let's go. It's what makes your company actually agile. And agility doesn't come from a scrum meeting that wastes 45 minutes of every morning talking about what you did yesterday and what you plan on doing today. That's just a professional circle jerk. What you don't need is stand-ups and sprint boards. What you need is real-time evolution. You need to let the chains off of the professionals that you hired to do what they're best at. Nobody gives a shit about the speakeasy that you have tucked away on the third floor of your 8-story office building. What they care about is if they can speak the truth in a meeting without fearing getting benched by a manager who was just proven wrong in front of a whole team. That type of situation needs to be welcomed. Whether or not you're a senior leader or a founder, if somebody, even like an intern, brings up verifiable, data-backed proof that a strategy was wrong for the company and that there is a better idea on the table, everyone's ego needs to drop and you need to do what is best for the company, no matter who it comes from. This is going to encourage everybody at all levels to act like an owner. I see this with the culture at Clover.ai, one of the companies that I advise for, where their CEO, Danny, does this all of the time. There are more often than not, he has wonderful ideas, don't get me wrong, but most of the design ideas end up getting tabled or they end up heavily influencing what the final product ends up looking like. But the majority of what he ends up offering from a design perspective doesn't get shipped. And he is equally as obsessed with product as somebody like a Steve Jobs was. It's very rare to see somebody that is as committed and as willing to build alongside his employees. It's very easy to see how quickly he's like, oh, this is the better idea. This is how the dashboard needs to look like. This is the industry standard. I was off base. Easy. Move on. And then it just never gets brought up again, which has brought on a culture that you're able to communicate with the CEO about absolutely anything. Things like market shifts will lead to revenue dips. That is business, baby. Welcome. But the truth is, most people will be watching the market and feel burnt out or scared when there's a slight shift and they start to feel vulnerable because they took a risk working for your startup. It is your responsibility as a founder to make sure that everybody stays feeling secure. And if they were good enough for you to hire for the scale phase, they're good enough to keep to dig yourself out of a market downturn. When your team has shared values and operates with clarity and purpose, they don't splinter when they're under pressure. They tighten and they innovate. They work harder and they work more to protect the integrity of the band. Culture holds when funding doesn't, and it sustains when your scale gets a little bit messy and maybe a few campaigns didn't pan out as planned. Your customers, they feel it at every single stage. External trust is built on internal coherence. Your user is going to know the jarring difference between going to a sales team to a support team if those internal stakeholders are not aligned on the company mission, on the messaging, on the positioning, and the value that the sales team promised was going to be delivered. Your brand is not a logo. Your brand is what your team and your users believe in you when no one's watching. So how do you build this without falling into the whole "we are a family" trap? Because let's be real, you're not building a family. You're building a hit squad of the best professionals that you can convince to join your company to go ahead and disrupt that industry. You start with real values, not integrity or collaboration. That's what everybody should aspire to have as baseline human beings anyway. What you want is actual principles. We speak with candor. If somebody is wrong, they are allowed to be called out about it immediately. You can be crude. You can swear. You can drop the corporate jargon and bullshit and niceties that are actually keeping you back and just be a raw person. Treat them like your best friend. And I promise you, you likely swear at your best friend and you probably call them out for your shit. Do the same thing to your managers. And as a founder and as a CEO or whoever you are in the company, enable the people below you on the corporate hierarchy to do the same for you. If you're a founder and you get called out for being wrong, that's okay. And it's encouraged. You also want to optimize for speed. You don't need to take 6 months to perfect a product that's probably going to ship out with bugs that you missed anyway. Get it done, get it out to the market, validate it, and then scale it. There's nothing that's going to kill your company more than these excessively long development cycles for a product that you don't even know if people actually want yet because you want to make sure that the button glistens in the right way. I don't give a shit about that. Get a product that people actually care about and actually people are going to use and stick with and they don't churn from immediately, then make it pretty. Build first, optimize later. You want to be able to protect your builders. And this is primarily aimed towards your developers. If your developers are feeling like they're not safe in the company, they're worried about layoffs, they are uncertain and insecure, then they're not going to be giving 100% to your code base. They're going to be taking shortcuts. They're going to be applying to other jobs. They're going to be watching YouTube videos while they're working. And that's going to bleed off into the customer experience. You're going to see an uptick in support tickets. You're going to see a misalignment between what sales is promising because they're supposed to fluff everything up versus the reality of what the product actually is. And then last, you want to kill mediocrity. If you want to be mediocre, go work in an enterprise and just protect your job. You are working at a startup. Your job is to be as ruthlessly efficient as possible, creative as possible, and understand that, hey, everyone is taking a bet on everyone. The startup is taking a bet on you with their very limited cash, and you are taking a bet on the startup as an unverified, unvalidated company that's still fighting tooth and nail for consistent revenue. That means that everybody involved needs to show up at least trying to emulate being an expert in their field. And if they're not already, it is their job to publicly go learn. As a founder, it is your responsibility to give them the tools to do so, not threaten to fire them because they happen to make 1 or 2 mistakes. You need to take these ideologies and embed them, brand them, tattoo them onto your company if you need to. Put them embedded in your hiring, in your onboarding, and in your operations. Culture isn't just a slide in a deck. It is a standard that you live and you breathe. And if you're the CEO or the founder, you need to be the one that takes the first step every single time. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard and you might not know the opportune way. Of course, that's what you hire people for, but it goes a tremendous distance to be able to hop into a team that is struggling or on crunch time and say, hey, What can I do even if it's small? Your employers are going to remember that, and they will pay you back for it in spades. It is incredibly important to realize that this just isn't some kumbaya family that you're trying to build. You're building a hit squad that is ripe, ready, and equipped to go ahead and overtake the market. Because what you're saying by building your product is that nobody else can do this as good as you. And if you don't believe that, then what are you doing with your investors' money? Every single person on your team should be irreplaceable, not because they have an ego or they are entitled. It is because they have earned it. If they're not irreplaceable, it is your job as a founder to develop them into somebody that is. After all, you hired them. If your culture is weak, no product will be able to save you. But if your culture is strong, then no crisis will be able to break you. If there's a market downturn and you keep everyone and enable everyone, then they're going to pay you back tenfold rather than losing 30 to 40% of their productivity out of raw fear. Don't build a company that just chases Series A hype and then happens to fizzle out because, hey, we didn't think further than this. You want to build a company where absolutely every single member is chasing personal and professional mastery. They are using your company as a platform to explore their interests at scale that they might not be able to unlock on their own. You get the benefit and they get the platform. That's how you outlast any of your competition and how you dominate a market who is just throwing money at people, but they are not throwing purpose. If you got any amount of value from this, please do me a huge favor and go ahead and ring that subscribe bell, and leave a comment below. I would appreciate any type of discourse down below, and I will answer any questions that you have. If this was helpful, please go ahead and share it with somebody on your team that could get some value from this as well. And I will go ahead and leave 2 additional videos up in the top here. Have you clicked yet, or are you going to make me do this all day? All right, I think that's all you're going to get from me. Adios.